Boys and girls, we've been talking about artists who are making a difference in the world just by creating artwork. Last week we learned about Wyland, and we learned that when he was younger, he saw that people were just throwing garbage into the ocean. And when he would ask them, "Why are you doing that?" they said, "Well, doesn't it all just sink to the bottom? It just kind of goes away, doesn't it?" And he was surprised at how many people didn't understand that, like a plastic bag like you see here, could be confused for a jellyfish by a sea turtle looking for some food. So he decided, rather than getting angry and yelling at people who were putting trash into the ocean, he said, "You know what? I think what it is that people just don't really appreciate what's under the surface of the water." So because he was an artist, he decided, "I'm going to start making beautiful paintings of sea creatures, but I'm going to paint it life size." But he thought, where am I going to find a wall big enough to do a life-size painting of a whale? Well, then the next thing came into his head. He said, "I'm going to go find some really ugly walls in cities." And believe it or not, there's plenty available on the side of a Costco near you or any other big store. And he started to say, "Can I paint a scene from the ocean?" Some of you may even recognize this one from down in the Keys. Well, so many people said yes. And so now, over the last 30 years, he has painted hundreds of these murals. And now, after appreciating the art that he made, people think, you know what? I don't think I'm going to put a water bottle into the water if a manatee might eat it. And so just by making art, he has influenced people's choices. So last week, we painted some beautiful sea turtles that we're going to be putting into a mural to also be able to communicate, to make good choices with our ocean and with treating sea creatures appropriately. Now, today I'm going to teach you about a man named Xavier Cortada. Xavier Cortada has done a lot of wonderful things here in Miami using his artwork as a way of raising awareness of things that may not be very good for our city. He actually is working right now at Pinecrest Gardens. That is, I have a feeling a lot of you have been there. Some of you have soccer games there, or you've been to the water park, or you've gone to the garden, or even the farmer's market. Well, Xavier Cortada, this is him when he's all dressed up and not in his artsy clothes with probably a paint on him. But here he is. He had heard that over at Matheson Hammock, some of you have probably seen this before. This is the place you pull in, maybe if you have a boat, or a long time ago, people would go to a place called Redfish Grill and have dinner. When you first drive in, there's a building over to the right that's made out of coral rock. Some people have weddings there. And then you drive down this long driveway. And then eventually you get to, there's a little reservoir where you can swim. There's a walkway. Some people get their family pictures taken here. Or you can go out on your boat. But at Matheson Hammock, he had heard that the parking lot lately has been flooding a lot. And it's kind of weird because when you look at a picture like this, you think, what? Are those like cars floating along with the boats? No. What it is that the parking lot has covered up with water. Now, Xavier Cortada, he said, "I care about my neighborhood. What is going on?" So he asked someone, and they simply said to him, "Well, we have a low elevation. We're at 1.86 feet. So he said, someone's got to explain this to me. I'm not getting it. So he said, "What's elevation?" Well, let me explain it to you. If you are standing at the beach, and let's say you're standing right along the sand, and the water is just touching your feet, that means that you are at sea level. You are at the sea level, the level of the sea. If you go under the water, that would mean that you are below the level of the sea. You are below sea level. And if you go up onto a little hill, that means you're going to be above sea level because you are higher than the level of the sea. Now, if you understand that, that's what we call elevation. And people, all the way from people who live very close to sea level to people up in Mount Everest who are thousands and thousands and thousands of feet above sea level, that's a good way to tell people how high you are. Now, again, someone standing right here at the edge of the ocean is going to be at zero. Their feet are at sea level. But imagine you're at sea level and some friend of yours, I have no idea why, brings out a box that is 1 foot tall. That's 12 inches, the size of the ruler that you probably have in your classroom. It's the height of 1 foot. If this person stands on that box, they are now 1 foot higher than sea level. So they would think of themselves as being a 1. They are at 1 feet above sea level. Now, if the same friend was a little strange and went and got another box that was 5 feet tall and put that on the sand, I don't know why, it seems kind of dangerous, but if they did, and that person stood on top, they are now 5 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'd have to measure it, but they are now 5 feet higher than sea level. So they would say they are at elevation 5 above sea level. Now let's look at how this really is in real life. In real life, people aren't standing on boxes. What it is that the land slopes higher and lower, whether you're on a hill or a mountain or just a little tiny hill. So this person would be standing at zero. If someone could measure it, they would see that this was about 1 foot higher than sea level. So they are now at 1 elevation. And then if they measure it and they are 5 feet higher than sea level up here on this tiny hill, they're now at 5. Well, back to our person at zero. If my person down here at zero calls out to their friend who's climbed up here, that person now is maybe at 17, 18, 19. They'd have to measure it, but they're about 17 feet above sea level. Now, Xavier Cortada said, I get it. So, Matheson Hammock is about 1 foot above sea level. But what's the deal? Why didn't you guys just make the parking lot high enough way back when you made it a long time ago? Well, they said, well, Xavier, what's happening is that the level of the sea is getting higher. It's getting higher, and not so much because of tides. The sea does go lower and higher because of tides, but the sea level is actually right now permanently staying a little higher than it used to. Now, for this person who lives up here, that may not be a big difference for them. But if this person has had their house here, and every day they love coming outside, they put their feet in the water, and then they go back home, if the sea level is getting higher, they may not like that very much because now it's starting to get pretty close to their house. In fact, it's right around their kitchen. So, if you think of a sea turtle like we learned last year, if a female sea turtle knows to go to the same beach every year, and she normally crawls right up here and she digs a hole and she lays her eggs, if this water is even a foot taller, it could be that the waves now come up all the way up to this green part. Next year when she comes out, she's going to say, where'd my beach go? What's going on? So that is just a tiny way that when the sea level gets higher, how it impacts even a lot of animals that are in the ocean. Now, if you think of it this way, this is an aerial view of Matheson Hammock. You can see that this is very low to the water. It is 1.8 feet above sea level. So if the sea level rises, that means that it could be that this would be underwater. And maybe not just, now it kind of happens when we have a storm, but we want to keep our eye on the level of the ocean and make sure that it's not getting too high. Now, when we look at Miami and we look downtown, it's not hard to kind of put it together that if we live so close to sea level, we really want to know more about what makes the sea level rise and to try and make sure that we are thinking about that. Now, do we need to freak out? Do we need to scream and go, oh no, my house is going to be covered with water? No. That's not what we're going to do. What we are going to do is if you ever hear someone talking about sea level rise or the elevation, whereas before you might have went, I have no idea what they're talking about. Next. Now you can kind of go, oh yeah, I know about that. I know about Miami. we have a very low elevation. We need to be thinking about sea level rise. Not freaking out, just kind of listening for it. Yesterday I was driving around and I heard it mentioned on the radio. I've never heard that before, but because I've been learning about it, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there they are. And as you guys get older and you continue to hear people mention sea level rise, you, because you're so stinking smart, can start to think about, what can I do to make sure the sea doesn't get higher? Now, we don't even know all the reasons yet, but as you get older, and if we learn more, we can figure out, how can we take care of the earth so that the sea level does not get higher? God even asks us to do that. It's one of the earliest things he asked us to do in the Bible. He said, make sure you take care of the earth. Make sure you're making good choices. That's all he's asking us to do. Now, Xavier Cortada says, no one needs to be freaking out. However, it is good to know. It's good to know your elevation. It's just a good thing for you to be thinking about. So I went online and I looked at my house. This is my house right here. This is Mr. Heatrix's rooster mailbox. Mr. Heatrix has never seen a rooster he doesn't love. But anyway, I put my house into the website and I found out that my house is 9.37 feet above sea level. So that means that, back to my crazy friend with the boxes at the beach, that means that if I was standing on a ladder, let's not do that, a box 9 feet on the beach, that's about where my house is, but way far in down here by the zoo. That means that I would put a marker number 9 in front of my house. And when someone comes by, they might say, Anne, why do you have a number 9 in front of your house? And I'd say, because that is our elevation above sea level. And they would say, we should probably make sure and try and be thinking about ways to make sure that water does not come by our house, that water does not go higher. Now, I plugged in Matheson Hammock, where this issue with the parking lot still happens. And I plugged that in, 1.86. Now that you know a little bit more about elevation, that should make sense. Oh, that's pretty low. That is very close to the level of the ocean. Interesting. Now they would put a number 1 in front of their building to make people realize or help them see that we need to be concerned about how we can make sure that the ocean does not go higher. Now, we got this cute little school right here. I plugged that one in, and we found out that we are at 13 feet above sea level. Some people thought because we were closer to the ocean over here, it would be lower, but it changes all over. You just have to figure it out for your own home. So here at Westminster, we are at 13 feet above sea level. So we would put a number 13 in front of our school to let people know that we're 13 feet above sea level. Now, Xavier Cortada is very excited. He's coming to our school to work with the high school students. The high schoolers are going to be going around Pinecrest, and they have permission to paint the number of the elevation along quite a few roads here right around school. In fact, right around Christmas time, you might start to notice these numbers in front of people's houses or on these walls, and it will be our students who are helping to spread the word about elevation. Now, because our school is 13, we are going to make a marker for us, and next week when Xavier Cortada comes, I'd like to surprise him with it. And in the numbers, each of you are going to be choosing a sea creature. You are going to be decorating it, and we are going to be putting it inside that number 13 so that we can be remembering the sea creatures that live in the ocean too, and that we need to take care of them as well. So right now, I'm going to be showing you how we're going to begin our project.